One stormy evening, a pregnant woman collapsed by a deserted roadside. She was ignored by every passing car until one young black waiter, who had just been fired for sharing his last meal with her, came to her aid. He knelt, helped her to her feet and led her home. What he didn't realize was that she was the long-lost daughter of a powerful CEO. And what unfolded next is a testament to how a single act of kindness can truly change a person's destiny. Before we dive into the story, please let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The July sun in Beverly Hills was a relentless, judging presence, spilling its light over the gleaming luxury cars that snaked along the boulevard. Inside the Gilded Spoon, a restaurant where every utensil shone with polished pride, Ethan bent low, meticulously wiping down table number 9. His white shirt clung to his back, damp with sweat, his dark hair falling across his forehead. He didn't complain, working silently as if each stroke of the cloth could somehow alter his fate. Ethan was young, tall, and slender, easily overlooked among the expensive suits and rich perfumes that filled the opulent dining room. He came from South Central, raised by his mother, Clara, a retired nurse who still woke before dawn to count coins for the market. She had instilled in him old-fashioned values, lessons whispered in the dim light of their small home. Son, no matter how hard life gets, never turn your back on someone in need. Kindness is never lost. This simple phrase, a faint but persistent melody, resonated deep within Ethan, a quiet mantra against the harsh realities of his world. The job at the Gilded Spoon was a lifeline, a fragile thread keeping their humble home from falling apart. Yet every day Ethan felt like an outsider, pressed against a pane of glass, observing a world he was only allowed to serve. Outside the restaurant's plate glass window, beneath the merciless glare of the sun, a gaunt figure was huddled near the entrance. Sarah, a young woman, looked utterly out of place. Her worn plastic flip-flops, her thin, faded cotton t-shirt stretched over a billowing maternity dress, and a heavily swollen belly that suggested she was due at any moment. Her face was smudged with dirt, her hair matted and tangled with sweat. No one seemed to notice her. Sleek cars glided past and customers entered the restaurant as if she were invisible. A security guard briefly cast his eyes over her, then shook his head, muttering, "That beggar again." Ethan caught a glimpse of Sarah through the glass. He saw the desperation in her trembling posture under the scorching sun. She had been there all morning without food, water, or shade and was clearly in immense distress. A powerful wave of empathy rose within Ethan, compelling him to act. During his short break, he discreetly slipped outside. In his hand was a small brown paper bag containing a takeout container he had bought with his own money, the little he had left after bus fare and a small amount sent to his mother. Inside was half a portion of his leftover pasta from lunch, a piece of bread and a bottle of cold water. He looked around like a thief, his eyes darting toward the scowling face of the manager, Mr. Harrison, who was standing by the cash register. Ethan swallowed hard. He knew he would be in serious trouble if caught. Questions flickered through his mind, but when he looked back at Sarah, the gnawing compulsion to help outweighed his fear. He knelt beside Sarah, his heart pounding with both apprehension and a fierce desire to alleviate her suffering. "Hey ma'am, eat this. Please, just have a little something," Ethan whispered, his voice laced with genuine concern. Sarah looked up, startled, her eyes, dulled by hunger and fatigue, flickered with a faint spark of hope. Her lips trembled with thirst and exhaustion. "Thank you. God bless you," she whispered weakly, taking the brown paper bag with trembling hands. Ethan offered a small, anxious smile mixed with quiet satisfaction, then quickly retreated inside before anyone noticed. What Ethan didn't know was that his small act of kindness was about to change his life forever. That evening, after the last customer had departed, the restaurant manager, Mr. Harrison, stormed in, his face contorted with anger, pale from the summer heat. Harrison, a white man, always seemed to scowl at Ethan as if he were a wrinkle in a pristine satin tablecloth. He never bothered to use Ethan's name, but his eyes never forgot the color of his skin. Mr. Harrison was ambitious, constantly under immense pressure from Mr. Kenneth Sterling, the restaurant group's owner, to maintain the Gilded Spoon's impeccable image and profit margins. He had received a stern reprimand just last month about a minor customer complaint, and his paranoia about anything tarnishing the restaurant's reputation was at an all-time high. "Who gave food to the beggar outside?" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the empty space like a knife slicing through the stillness. The entire staff froze, a heavy silence descending. No one uttered a word. Mr. Harrison spun around, his eyes searching until they landed on Ethan like a hawk spotting its prey. "You," he pointed a rigid finger at Ethan. "I saw you on the CCTV. You left your post to feed that girl. In this establishment, food is for paying customers. You are here to work, not to play the saint." Mr. Harrison advanced on Ethan, his gaze filled with palpable contempt. "And who do you think you are doing something like that? You think you can bring your cheap charity in here? This isn't your slum neighborhood." His voice dripped with disdain, a clear undertone of racial prejudice, barely masked by his fury over the breach of rules. Ethan's hands trembled, a cold sweat breaking out on his back. He swallowed hard, his eyes pleading. "Sir," he stammered, "but I used my own money to buy the food. I just saw she was so hungry and exhausted in the sun." "Silence!" Mr. Harrison roared, cutting him off, his voice a low hiss. "You're fired immediately. I don't need people like you here bringing trouble and filth into my restaurant." The entire staff gasped. Some shook their heads in dismay. Others felt pity but dared not speak. "Please, sir," Ethan pleaded, his eyes welling up, the crushing weight of his mother's well-being and his uncertain future crashing down on him. "This is our only source of income. You can join her in the unemployment line," Mr. Harrison snapped, turning away dismissively. "Security, escort him out," he ordered, cold and final. The restaurant door slammed shut, the click of the lock a chilling pronouncement. As Ethan left the restaurant, clutching his small bag, a profound sadness and worry weighed on him. Immediately after his firing, the rain began, a merciless storm. Ethan sat under a makeshift awning, his uniform soaked, clutching his bag. He had no money to go home. The crushing anxiety of bills and providing for his mother consumed him. Ashamed and disheartened, he watched the rain. Just as he slumped, he heard a faint, weak cry. "Someone help." His heart seized. It was Sarah, clearly in agony, clutching her belly on the sidewalk. Without a second thought, Ethan scrambled across the street. His sharp instincts kicked in. "Hey, what's wrong?" he called, kneeling beside her. "I'm going into labor," Sarah whispered, her teeth chattering from the cold and pain, each word like a final breath. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He had never seen a woman in labor before, but he knew this girl wouldn't survive the night like this. "Hold on, please, just try," Ethan said, looking around helplessly, desperately searching for aid from indifferent passers-by. Cars sped by. People hurried past under umbrellas, steering clear of them, oblivious to another's suffering. Ethan had no money, no one to call, just his fear and his unwavering resolve not to abandon her. But something inside him refused to leave this girl there, something bigger than his own fear. "Can you stand?" Ethan asked. Sarah weakly shook her head, her body slumping like a broken branch. Ethan gritted his teeth, wiping the rain from his face. He gently helped Sarah to her feet and she clung to him, each step a staggering effort. "I'll take you to my home," Ethan said, his voice resolute. "My mother can help you." Together they plodded through the deserted streets under the relentless downpour. Ethan's clothes were soaked through, his heart pounding, a sense of desperate urgency enveloping him. He murmured constant words of encouragement to Sarah, who was gasping with every breath. Finally, after what felt like hours of agonizing struggle, they reached Ethan's humble abode. Ethan pushed open the door to his tiny house, where a faint yellow light spilled out just enough to reveal the worn, familiar furniture. "Mom," he called out, his voice urgent and breathless. Clara, Ethan's mother, who had been mending clothes under the dim light, looked up with a start. When she saw her son supporting a drenched, heavily pregnant woman, she understood immediately. As a retired nurse with years of experience in community clinics and underserved areas, she didn't panic. She had seen and assisted with many births in makeshift conditions, so she knew what to do. Her eyes quickly scanned their small, cramped house, which was nonetheless filled with an abundance of love. Even through the dirt and exhaustion, Clara felt a faint, unsettling familiarity in Sarah's eyes, a ghost of a memory she couldn't quite grasp. "Son, bring the girl in gently," she said, her voice calm but authoritative. She quickly cleared a small corner of the living room, spreading a clean blanket on the floor. "In our neighborhood it's not easy to get to a hospital in time and money is scarce. She's about to give birth. I'll help her right here. Sarah was eased onto the makeshift bed, moaning in pain, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cold. I think the baby's coming, she panted, clutching Ethan's hand. Clara immediately examined Sarah, her face showing concern but maintaining the composure and experience of a seasoned professional. That's right, the baby is coming, Ethan. Get me clean towels and warm water. Hurry. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of agonizing moans and hushed reassurances. Ethan held Sarah's hand tightly, whispering, "You can do it. Don't give up. Breathe in. Breathe out." He wiped the sweat from her forehead, his eyes filled with worry and admiration. Sarah cried out in pain, her body shaking violently, but under the professional and comforting guidance of Clara, she pushed with all her might. Finally, with one last push, a sharp cry echoed through the small room. Sarah had given birth to a baby girl. Clara lifted the baby, cleaned her gently, and placed her in Sarah's arms. "You did it, my dear," she said, her voice filled with pride and warmth. "A healthy baby girl." Ethan smiled through his tears as he watched Sarah cradle the tiny crying bundle to her chest, her face exhausted but radiant. "You did it," Ethan whispered, wiping Sarah's forehead. "You're safe now. The baby too." Sarah looked at him with tired eyes, her lips trembling with exhaustion but shining with infinite gratitude. "Thank you both. Why did you help me? You don't even know who I am," she asked, her voice weak but full of wonder. Ethan's gaze drifted toward the dark window, his tone low. "Because I know what it's like to be left behind. And because my mother always taught me, no matter how cruel life gets, we have to hold on to compassion." He turned back to her, eyes steady. "I didn't care who you were. I just saw someone who needed help. I couldn't walk away." Sarah stared at him, still unsure. Was kindness like this real or just another illusion? Clara stepped forward and handed Sarah a warm cup of tea, her voice soft. "My son's kindness isn't random, dear. It's God's way of saying your story isn't over yet. This little one," she reached out, touching the baby's cheek with reverence, "is a blessing, and so are you." Ethan leaned in a little closer. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Sarah hesitated, then whispered, "Sarah." Her voice faltered as emotion surged in her chest. He paused, searching for strength. "I don't remember my real parents," she began, eyes distant. "The only person I ever called mom was a woman named Miss Stella. She said she found me on the roadside when I was about 3. She asked my name and I said Sarah. So that's who I became." She looked down. "Growing up with her felt like a prison. She made me sell flowers on the street every day, rain or shine, sick or not. If I didn't bring in enough money, she'd beat me and leave me hungry. I never had friends. I didn't even know what love looked like." Her voice dropped further. "When I was 16, she said I was old enough to start dating men for money. I refused. She beat me until I couldn't move, then threw me out into the night. I slept under bridges. People spat at me, cursed me. I was nothing." She exhaled shakily. "Then I met Caleb. He was the first person who smiled at me without asking for something. He let me stay, fed me, made me laugh. Thought he cared. But when I told him I was pregnant, he left. Just walked out. No goodbye." Sarah's hands clenched around the teacup. "After that, no one wanted to help me. People looked at me like I was filth. I begged. I endured. I nearly died. 3 months ago, I snuck into the back of a cargo truck headed to LA. I thought maybe, just maybe, the city of dreams would be different. But there was no help, just more hunger, more fear." Silence settled, broken only by the baby's gentle breaths. Then Sarah turned to Ethan and Clara, her eyes brimming with tears. "But today you stopped. You saw me. You gave me food when you had so little. You carried me through the rain, and you helped me bring my child into this world when no one else would even look at me." Ethan reached out and clasped her hand tightly. "You're not dirt," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're someone's child. Now you're a mother, and from tonight you are my sister. You are not alone anymore." Sarah burst into uncontrollable sobs, burying her face in her hands. She hadn't cried like that in years, the long-suppressed pain finally overflowing. Ethan held her close, both of them sobbing as Clara watched from the corner of the room, her eyes glistening with emotion and pride for her son. As the tears subsided, Clara moved closer and sat down. "Life may have pushed you into the mud," she said gently, stroking Sarah's hair. but sometimes all it takes is one hand to pull you out. Ethan's kindness tonight wasn't random. It's God's way of telling you that your story isn't over. This little one is a blessing and so is your life. Sarah slowly nodded, wiping her face. For the first time in years she felt something she thought she had long lost: hope. At dawn, Clara entered, carrying a tray with hot porridge and a warm cup of water. "Good morning, my children," she greeted softly. "You both need to eat," she said, sitting beside them. "Especially you, Sarah. You need your strength to nurse the baby." "What's her name?" she asked. "Faith," Sarah replied, her gaze soft on her daughter. "Because God was with me through the storm." Clara nodded, her face softening. "That's a beautiful name for a precious child, a child of faith." As Sarah ate slowly, Ethan watched her silently. There was so much he wanted to ask, but he didn't want to press. He felt a strange connection to this girl, as if fate had somehow brought them together. Life in Ethan's humble home began simply but warmly. Each morning, Ethan would wake early to fetch water and tidy their small room while Sarah nursed baby Faith. Their routine became simple yet sacred: warming porridge, washing baby clothes, and sitting quietly under the weak ceiling fan, sharing stories of pain, laughter, and survival. Sarah was healing, but not just from childbirth. She was healing from years of rejection, abandonment, and suffering. Some nights, Ethan would wake up to find Sarah sitting silently in the dark, staring at her baby, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. He sensed the profound fear and insecurity still lurking within her, the anxiety about the future, and whether she could protect this tiny, helpless life. To ensure Sarah and baby Faith were as comfortable as possible, Ethan had given up the only bed in the house to Sarah and the baby. Clara herself always slept with them in the room, caring for Faith and Sarah. Ethan slept on the old sofa in the living room. Though uncomfortable, he felt a sense of peace knowing his mother and his sister were getting proper rest. The savings of Ethan and his mother were incredibly meager, only a few $100s, barely enough to cover a few urgent expenses or purchase the most basic necessities until the next paycheck. When Sarah arrived in such critical condition, Clara had used a significant portion of this precious reserve cash to buy essentials for Sarah and baby Faith: a few newborn clothes, simple food, and other small items. This was a tremendous sacrifice, demonstrating her deep kindness and compassion, because in their circumstances, every single penny was invaluable. Yet things were not easy for Ethan either. Without the job at the Gilded Spoon, he had no stable income. He tried to pick up odd cleaning jobs in the neighborhood, helping a neighbor at the local market for a little cash or sometimes a few leftover food items. Every evening returning home, the worry about money crept into his mind. He was terrified he wouldn't be able to provide for his mother, Sarah, and Faith. He feared they would once again face destitution or worse, be forced back onto the streets. One afternoon, as they sat outside their house, Sarah finally spoke about something she had kept hidden in her heart. "Miss Stella always told me I was found by the roadside when I was 3. But sometimes I dream. I dream of a big house, a man with a deep voice, and a woman who used to sing to me. She would sing a lullaby about stars in her eyes and rub a smooth, cool stone on my forehead. The singing was so soft, so familiar. I don't know if it's real or just my mind trying to make me feel better," Ethan said gently. He recognized the fragility in her voice, a yearning for roots she had never known. "Perhaps those dreams mean something. Perhaps there's more to your story. We need to find out." Sarah continued to have the same dream almost every night: a grand house with sprawling gardens, a man calling her name with love, and the clear laughter of a woman. Felt so real. And each time she dreamt it, she woke up in tears, an unquenchable longing rising within her. Days later, as life continued its quiet rhythm in their small home, Clara remained consistently at home, looking after Sarah and baby Faith. She sat down quietly, her eyes thoughtful. "Do you have any marks on your body? Something unique? A birthmark or a scar?" Sarah paused, thinking. "On my upper arm there was a small, faded crescent-shaped birthmark. I've had this since I was little," she pointed to it. Clara's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly masked her surprise. Her mind, with its years of nursing experience and countless interactions with families, began to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of a puzzle. The faint familiarity she had felt in Sarah's eyes, the unusual dreams. She remembered an old story, a tragic one. "I once knew someone," she said softly, almost to herself. A very wealthy man. His daughter had the same birthmark exactly like yours and in the same place. It was a long time ago. Clara seemed preoccupied that evening, and Ethan noticed Sarah frequently tracing her birthmark, a mix of skepticism and hope in her eyes. A week later, Clara, with a serious but joyful expression, gathered them. "There's something I need to tell both of you," she began gravely, sensing their pounding hearts. She recounted her past as a nurse in Beverly Hills, where she had delivered Mr. Kenneth Sterling's only daughter, who bore the exact crescent-shaped birthmark. This child, about 3 years old, had vanished after a terrible car accident that killed Mr. Sterling's wife, leaving him searching for 17 years. Clara hadn't connected it until Sarah's birthmark and her dreams of a grand house, a man's voice, and a woman singing a lullaby about stars in her eyes and a cool stone became disturbingly familiar. Ethan's heart hammered. "Are you saying Sarah could be the lost daughter of Mr. Kenneth Sterling, the owner of the Gilded Spoon?" Clara nodded gently, trusting her intuition that everything uncannily matched. The room fell silent, the weight of this unbelievable possibility pressing down. Ethan cleared his throat. "What do we do now?" "We need more evidence." Clara resolved to visit Aunt Grace, an old friend and former nanny for the Sterling family, hoping she would know more. 4 days Ethan and Sarah waited anxiously, each moment stretching. Sarah tried to act normal, but Ethan sensed her profound anxiety, a terrifying mix of hope and fear for a life-altering truth. On Friday afternoon, Clara returned, a small leather bag in hand, her face grave but eyes sparkling with joy. "I found her," she simply stated. Aunt Grace, now very old in Santa Monica, had confirmed the story after Clara sang the lullaby. The unmistakable identifying mark was a small scar on the right ankle from a childhood fall. Sarah immediately pulled up her pant leg. The faded scar was undeniably there. Tears instantly welled. "And there's more," Clara said, pulling out an old faded photo of a smiling 3-year-old girl. Sarah gasped. It was her. A bright smile she had never seen on herself. The room fell silent, broken only by Sarah's soft sobs. Tears streamed down her face. Ethan knelt beside her, clasping her hand, feeling the powerful surge of emotion. "It's true," Sarah whispered, trembling. "It's me. I'm their daughter." Clara gently placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You are Sarah Sterling, daughter of Mr. Kenneth Sterling." Sarah burst into uncontrollable sobs, years of suffering pouring out. Ethan wept beside her, holding her tightly. After the tears subsided, Clara contacted Mr. Sterling with Aunt Grace's help. Overjoyed, he immediately set off for the Boyle Heights slum. Hours later, a luxurious car pulled up. Clara led Mr. Sterling to Ethan's small home. When Mr. Sterling entered and saw Sarah, he froze, staring at the familiar eyes and curve of her mouth he had longed for. "Sarah," he whispered, eyes glistening. "Please, may I see your arm?" Sarah revealed the birthmark. Tears streamed down his face as he touched it. "Phew. It truly is my daughter." Sarah's heart pounded. Clara explained, "My dear, this is your father, Mr. Kenneth Sterling." "My father," Sarah whispered. Mr. Sterling took her hand. "You disappeared 17 years ago after that terrible accident. I searched relentlessly. I thought you were dead. I've lived in hell." Tears flowed ceaselessly down Sarah's face as she fell into his arms, releasing years of pain. "You're all I have," Mr. Sterling whispered, holding her tightly. "You are my daughter, my flesh and blood." Ethan, watching from the corner, was also moved to tears, feeling the profound emotional release between father and daughter. Clara whispered to Ethan, "Your kindness brought her home. He gave a father his child back. You did a great thing." The room filled with the bittersweet solace of a family reunited. Mr. Kenneth Sterling returned to his mansion with Sarah and baby Faith. Clara also moved in to help them adjust. Mr. Sterling was overjoyed to be a grandfather, spending all his time with Faith. He quickly made up for Sarah's lost years, providing the best medical care, beautiful clothes, and lawyers to formalize her identity. He set up a substantial trust fund for Faith. Ethan soon learned that Mr. Kenneth Sterling owned the Gilded Spoon, where he had been unjustly fired by Mr. Harrison. Initially, Ethan felt awkward. Mr. Sterling noticed, sighed, and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Ethan," he said, heartfelt, "I know you were treated unfairly in my establishment. I am deeply ashamed, but your kindness, It saved my daughter and my granddaughter. You brought me back what is most precious." Sarah was determined Ethan's kindness wouldn't be forgotten. She turned to her father. "Dad," she began resolute, "Ethan did more than just give me a meal. He saved me. He risked everything when no one else would. He fed me, carried me in the rain, brought me home, and his mother helped me give birth. He even lost his job at your restaurant because he chose kindness over rigid rules." Every word was an affirmation of Ethan's extraordinary kindness. Mr. Kenneth Sterling listened with astonishment, tears welling. "My son," he said, voice trembling. "I cannot believe such kindness was punished in my own business. You saved my family." He smiled. "And now you will be a part of my family, not just an employee. You can call me Uncle Ken." Immediately, Mr. Sterling offered Ethan a position as senior assistant manager at a newly acquired high-end restaurant within his group. This role allowed Ethan to learn every aspect of fine dining under Mr. Sterling's direct mentorship. With his emotional intelligence and innate talent for reading people, Ethan would be an exceptional leader, fostering an environment where kindness was valued. The job came with a generous salary, benefits, and a comfortable, newly furnished apartment for his family. Mr. Sterling also presented Ethan with a sizable scholarship fund for Clara and for Ethan's continued education in hospitality management. Ethan was stunned. "Sir, I don't deserve this," he choked out. "I just did what anyone should do." "You deserve everything, Ethan," Mr. Sterling said, a warm smile on his lips. "You taught me a lesson money can't buy. You brought me back what is most precious, my daughter and my granddaughter. You saved my family." He smiled. "You can call me Uncle Ken." With his new position and financial support, Ethan moved his family into the comfortable apartment. Claire could finally rest. He afforded a reliable nanny for Faith. Sarah, with her father's and Ethan's support, began school. She decided to pursue a degree in social work, hoping to establish a foundation that would provide safe havens for homeless pregnant women, ensuring no one else would suffer as she had. She was determined to turn her pain into purpose. Years later, on a bustling Los Angeles street, a new restaurant opened, Second Table. A soft, elegant blue neon sign glowed. Inside, the space was warm and refined. There were tables with crisp white linens and simple wooden tables by large windows. A prominent plaque near the entrance read, "At Second Table, every meal is a second chance. A portion of all proceeds supports local shelters, and we offer complimentary meals to those in need. No questions asked." Ethan, now in his mid-30s, no longer the slender waiter, stood with a grounded presence. More mature, his eyes still held deep empathy, but now with the calm assurance of a seasoned manager and successful restaurateur, he moved between tables, observing a knowing smile playing on his lips. One evening after the dinner rush, Ethan walked to a simple wooden table by the window. A thin homeless man quietly enjoyed a complimentary bowl of hot soup and fresh bread. His eyes filled with profound gratitude. Ethan bent down, gently wiping the wooden surface. He no longer felt shame or fear. He looked at the man, then out onto the street, where many Sarahs might still struggle in the shadows. He smiled faintly, not for wealth but for something simpler, deeper. He knew he was exactly where he needed to be. A place where no one was overlooked. A place where every table, grand or humble, was a second table, a second chance. And in the quiet hum of the restaurant he heard it again, like an eternal melody. His mother's voice. "Son, no matter how hard life gets, never turn your back on someone in need. Kindness is never lost." This time the sound was no longer a distant reminder but a self-evident truth, the very foundation of the life he had built. The circle had closed. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.